Well, hello there, humans, hippies, earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and whoever you are lucky enough to be doing it too. I'm Bushka on Blitz, and we're here to have fun. Yeah, because if you don't laugh, you're going to cry. And that's how I feel about this tank. This is how much I love you guys. This is how much I adore the humans that frequent this channel. I have willingly driven the Churchill 1 in battle enough to form an opinion and post it up here for all you good people. Basically, do not drive this tank on purpose. There you have it. And don't go away, because I will be doing the Churchill 7, the tier 6 variant, and the Black Prince very, very soon after. And basically, it's going to be a trilogy of don't drive this tank on purpose will be the first part of the trilogy. The second part will be, what are you doing still driving these tanks on purpose, you absolute grub? And the third and final part of the trilogy will be, I wash my hands of you, you cannot be helped, there is no hope here. If you like tanks that are really, really slow and are really, really bad in terms of both gun depression and agility, in like mobility, you've got no traverse, you've got no turret traverse, these are the tanks for you. Look no further. You can wallow about in a den of iniquity with the Churchills, all to your heart's content. I'm going to break it down for you. These are dinosaurs. Back when the game started, everyone drove big freaking heavy tanks, and there was lots of corridor fighting, and people would go along and they'd side scrape and whatever, and everything was great, and the E75 was a king, and we all laughed and drank and were merry. That was back in the good old days. Unfortunately, what happened was everyone learned to play. They introduced more medium tanks, people learned to drive lights, and suddenly no one wants to stand in front of you anymore, which isn't really fun when you've got a tank that does, and get this is the joy of it, a top speed of 26 kilometers an hour, which is pretty crap, but surprisingly not the worst out of the Churchill 1, Churchill 7, and Black Prince line. A startlingly bad 17 degrees of traverse on your tracks, and a awful, absolutely god-awful 20 degrees of traverse on your turret. Now, the hallmark of this line is the guns. There is no doubt all the guns on the line work. They work well. They have good pen. They've got good gun handling. All that's grand. This is your issue. It looks like the tank's got a heap of spaced armour on the side. Big tracks. There's that panel running along the side. All that. Look at the spaced armour. That's your spaced armour. This is your primary armour. The yellow stuff. That thing on the side is not spaced armour. It is not some kind of shield for your tracks. It is actually the chassis of the tank, sticking out to the side at 90 odd millimeters. There is a section of it just up towards the front that is a square of 50 millimeters. This can be an issue when you are side scraping. And don't get me wrong, I had great win rates in all the British heavy tanks. I think it was 80% in the one I hate the most, the Black Prince. The Churchill 7 is the one I hate the most. But you can win in anything at tiers 5 and 6 because people just don't employ good gameplay mechanics all the time. And if you're in platoon with a mate who's in, say, a VK2801 or something equally snazzy, you'll rock it. And look at the tracks. The drive wheel is sticking out and it's a weak point, and you can go through it with like 90 millimeters at pass. 95 millimeters of bloody AP will get you straight through the front drive wheel of a side-scraping Churchill 1. I don't know how to say that that's bad in any other terms, but it's bad. This is what I'm talking about. This is why you can win in this tank. And if you want to drive it to win, this is what you have to do. You have to side-scrape. You have to let the gun sing, as they say in the Broadway musical scene. You have to find places that are choke points and keep the reds in front of you. Because there's two gloriously bad things about this tank. One is the mobility, the other is the gun depression. As soon as tanks start moving around the battlefield, you are in strife, because getting a shot out of this tank on any kind of moving target when you have 20 degrees of traverse in your turret and 17 on your tracks is oh so painful. Don't drive this tank on purpose, guys. Don't tell anyone I told you that. Free XP it. Save up your pocket money. and get to the Carnarvon. Get there quickly. Okay, watch what happens when Mr. KV1 turns around this corner. You're going to see the other bad thing about the Churchill's armour profile. That's how it looks to a KV1 firing AP rounds. That's not Premo, that's AP. Because the Churchill employs this wonderful thing called flat armour plate. It's not sloped. It's not sloped at all, which means the armour values on it are exactly as advertised. And no amount of angling will really stop that. You're just going to get penned. Watch this glorious moment where I try to face hug a KV1 only to have 4 degrees of gun depression completely stop me from lowering my gun far enough to shoot his weak points. Is that not fantastic? All this and more can be yours if you'll just consent to drive the Churchill one. If you're having too much fun in your life and you feel like you need to be calmed down, if your wife or significant other is telling you that you need to settle down at the dinner table and not be such a pest when people are around in company or general mixed business, drive the Churchill one. It'll settle you right down, boy. It's a dinosaur. It's a dinosaur and I don't like it and I don't want to drive it anymore and you can't make me and I refuse to. Look at the gun depression. Go, 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 go. If you want to get a shot, you're coming over the top of that hill. You're not hull downing, and it doesn't matter even if you did hull down because the frontal armour on the turret is absolutely god-awful. Gun handling's nice. Give you the gun handling stats because they are nice. 7.76 rounds a minute at 160 alpha. So that's grand. Your DPM is just fine for your tier. Your penetration values are lovely. 145 millimeters of pen on your AP, 202 millimeters of pen on your APCR. So there's not going to be any issues penning people when you actually get shots on target. 0.36 dispersion and 2.3 seconds of aim time. All pretty solid for a tier 5 heavy. But you're really moving like molasses. I'm going to win this game because I employ decent gameplay mechanics. I'm going to drive past the AT and hit him in the side while he can't hit me. He will eventually be able to hit me. And then I'm going to present my strongest part of my armor to the guys in the game with some of the lowest pen guns, i.e. the Matilda, and I believe there's a Leopard running around in there somewhere. You can see just how god-awful the traverse and such is. And look at this Leopard one, just moving backwards and forwards, trying to keep my armor from being seen by the bad guys. There's a KV1 over there who's pinging me all the time. There we go. We get rid of the Leopard, and then we're going to hide our really weak armor profile on the body of our vanquished foe, the AT, and we're going to hit the Matilda in the side. If I drove this with Snake, he'd yell at me. He wouldn't have 10 cents worth of it. I stopped driving the British heavy line with my mates because it was just embarrassing. You're so slow. It's like driving a T95. When you get there, quite often, everyone's dead, either on the red team or on your team, in which case there's no one left to kill or there's everyone left to kill. And if you're a sadomasochist, that's brilliant because you like being struck around the head with blunt objects. Me, call me old-fashioned, but I like my fun the other way around. I won't say any further. It's driven. This has made me an unhappy camper driving these British But the reason I'm doing this, and honest to God, this is the absolute reason I am driving these tanks, even though I know I don't like them, is because the last thing I want to do is for some person to start the game and, go all out, drive these things and get to tier 7 and get hounded to death by Draculas and Helsings and LTTBs and Type 62s and VK2801s and T43s and Comets and T23E3 Nomads, and it just never ends. There are so many really good fast tanks, SP1Cs, Jag Panthers. They all get out there. They all move. They all smash. They all have great DPM. They will all go through your frontal armor like a knife through butter. These are truths we hold to be self-evident. If you see a big fat Churchill that has 17 degrees of traverse, you will go round him while he does nothing but slowly die, moving his turret to the left or the right in tiny little increments. The Carnarvon's brilliant. The Conqueror is bloody lovely. Both these tanks have superb gun handling, which is the hallmark of the line, but there's a big jump in the DPM too for the Carnarvon. It also has this crazy thing called mobility, like the Conqueror. The Carnarvon has like 32 degrees of traverse on its bloody turret. The game is tending towards heaviums, right? Just this, listen up. Give me 1 second. If you only listen to one thing, listen to this. The game is tending towards heavies with mobility and a modicum of armor that you can utilize in flush situations and decent gun handling or DPM that you can bring to bear, and bigger hit point pools. Now, heavies always have that. The Tiger 1 has been revitalized by a great increase in both its agility, its traverse numbers, and its speed. It now does 44 kilometers an hour. It's a heavium. A heavium is like a combination of a medium and a heavy. The IS-8 is exactly the same kind of tank. It gets out there, 50 kilometer an hour straight speeds, decent armor profile, quite trollish in parts, and a really lovely gun. The M103, the IS-7, for all that it is an absolute monster, and the IS-4 in terms of armor profile are both very low to the ground, very hard to hit, and with very strong armor profiles, and they are mobile and they are freaking fast in a straight line. All these tanks work. Big tanks that are big and slow tend to get smashed by players that can utilize and exploit their complete lack of mobility. If I'm in a light tank, I am going to drive really quickly to a choke point and a spot. If that I see there's lots of other tanks in the other team that are slow, I'm going to light them up. And by the time they get across the open areas of maps where they are available for shots, they'll have half their hit points gone and they will be nearly combat ineffective. And that's because as you play the game more and more, you find that you need tanks that have some kind of mobility so that you can put your thoughts into action. You can take good strategy and you can formulate it on the spot and you can put it into effect because your tank can move. You don't have choices in tanks that are big and slow. And in tanks that have poor armor and poor mobility, you are exceptionally limited to the way you can fight the battle. If you are on Falls Creek in this tank, you have to go the bridge. If you go the other way, by the time you get there, the rest of your team has either moved on or the red team is coming right up your butt. If you're on Fort Despair, you need to go heavy channels. If you're on Copperfield, you need to go heavy channels. You have to drive your heavy channels. You have to drive the short distances between the spawns. There's no other way around it. If you don't do that, you are going to be matched up against mediums and lights, and your traverse numbers on your turret and your tracks are such that they will be able to get there, put shots on you and pull back into cover, or just simply go around you in circles while you eat it. That's it, boys and girls. Unfortunately, the dinosaurs are amongst us. As much as I would love to give this a glowing review, I can't. And look, I had great win rates in all these tanks, but it's irrelevant. It's completely irrelevant. If you are coming to the game and you're just starting it out, these are going to be pretty hard tanks to do well in. They're not so bad in that they're very simple gun handling wise, but you're far better off starting up the second Russian heavy line or the American heavy line. Tanks that have gun depression and solid turrets and things like that. Something to hang your hat on. Something to exploit. And the Churchills are just, they're god-awful tanks. You heard it here first. Enjoy. Leave your comments. I know a lot of people like these tanks. Employing good game mechanics and sensible play and resetting your camo and side scraping versus a leopard that can't pen you anyway does not make this a good tank. It just doesn't. You can do 4K in it. It's quite simple, but you've got to rely on everyone on the other team being bad. That's not a good thing. That's a terrible thing, in fact. And when you start getting up to 6 and 7 in these guys, they're just the slowest things on the battlefield and they're the easiest tanks to take advantage of. Look after yourself, humans. This is patron-sponsored post. The patron tournament is coming up. That's going to be a great barrel of laughs. I'm looking to run it this Saturday morning, which should be fantastic fun. look after yourself, look after your families, and stay safe on the battlefield. How much do I love you guys to do a review like that? I drove this thing. I put 20 games into every tank in this tier, 25 in some of them. It's like 75 games I'm never getting back. Rock on.